Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's three Prakim Rambam, Hilchos Maisa HaKorbanos, Prakim Dalet Hey and Vav, beginning with Perek Dalet. Perek Dalet is going to be telling us the rule that all of the Korbanos may only be offered during the daytime of the day, as we'll see the Pratim inside the Perek. However, the Hekter, the Chalavim, and the Evarim, they may be offered Kshedim Kol Halayla, nevertheless, right? That Chaviva Mitzvah B'Shaita, nevertheless, Zrizin Magdim and Mitzvahs, they should be brought ideally during the daytime of the day, and we're going to be learning about the Kavana that should be had during the offering of the Korbanos, specifically while we're doing the four steps, or the four Avodas, which are Shchita, Kabbalah, Hoilacha, and Zrika, that it has to be L'Shem Hazevach, etc. Nevertheless, if you had Stam Kavana, without having what korban for which person, that will also be okay. Perek Dalet has 11 halachas, beginning with halacha Aleph, says that Kol hakorbanos ein makriven oison ela bayoim. Shneimar, as it says a pasuk in Parshas Tzav, biyoim tzav voiseyas b'nei Yisrael, and biyoim is dafke lahakriv es korbaneim. And Chazal tell us biyoim during the day and not during the night. And lefikach, and therefore ein sheichten zvachim can't do the shchita. And nor ve'ein zarken damam ella b'yoyim hashchita, only on the day that the shchita was done, because lest one person think, okay, I can do it during the day. I'll shech today. I'm not going to throw the dam at night. I'll throw the dam tomorrow. That's also not going to be valid because of psulina. Shneimar, as it says, b'yoyim hakrivoi esifchoi, meaning b'yoyim hazvicha teyakrava. From this pasuk we learn, aside of the psulina, that on the day that you do the zvicha, which is the shchita, on that day you have to do the hakrava. And kiven sheshaka chama, once it's sunset, then the dam becomes invalidated. Oh, it's not psulina overnight. Shkias achama creates a psul in the dam. Halacha beis. Kol shekorvu matirin bayoim. As long as the element that causes this sacrifice, that causes this korban to be mutter, permitted, was done during the day. And when it comes to an animal korban, we're speaking about the zrikas hadam. So then the rule is, mailin oisei ala mizbeach, the meat, those parts that go on the altar may be brought up the entire night. Ketzad, for example, zvachim shenizak domim bayoim, then maktirin emoreyim, even balayla. What's balayla? Ad sheyala mudashachar. And similarly, when it comes to the oila, not only do the emurim, the chalavim go up on the altar, but when it comes to an oila, all of it is brought on the mizbeach. That's all midoi raisa. However, as we learned in the first mission in Brachos, amru chachanim she'em maktirin emurim unor the evari ha'oila ela ad chatzois halaylam. Halacha Gimel, see, even in the Rabbanan until Chatzos, nevertheless, ein ma'achrin oisam l'da'as. You don't willingly delay it, meaning not bring it a day, wait until the night. No. Ela mishtadlin lahakter hakril bayoim. Here the Rambam writes, because chaviva mitzvah b'shaita, and the designated time is during the daytime of the day. And what's the raya of the Rambam? Sharei hekterim urim ve'ivarim. Even though that they're ksherim balayla, listen to this: when they come from a korban, that the shchita is doiche Shabbos. Here, the rule is you don't say, for example, on the korbanos of Shabbos, all of the emurim should dafka only be brought at night. No, doichenas Shabbos bismano, and ve'ein ma'achrin oisam l'motzoi Shabbos, which is gavaldik. And is a raya that what? That even though you can bring it at night, the mitzvah b'shaita is on the day, which is why it's like Shabbos. Halacha dal. Kol davar she'einay karav ela bayoim. Anything that may only be brought during the day, for example, the kemitza of a korban mincha, the lavoina, the frankincense, the ketoides, right inside the inner altar, and all of the menachos that are completely burned, from which a kemitza is not taken. So here says that Rambam mutay lahakriven im mevoy hashemesh. They may be offered at sunset. At sunset means a moment before shkia, even though you know that item that you are putting on the mizbeach will not be burned, not even the roiv of it, prior to sunset. Doesn't matter. As you are putting it on the Mizbeach, right before Shia. And and they will continue to get burned during the night, like the Ivarim of the oil, and that will be just fine. Halacha, hey, I think you don't have the Chayenu 3, so you're not going to be able to follow over here with what we're learning, but you can do it online. We are learning Hilchos, Maisa Karbonos, chapter 4. Go to the 3 chapters that you have on Chabad.org. That will be great. Now, halacha, hey, HaNesachim, Haboim Imazevach. The Nesachim that we learned about yesterday in Perek Beis, that comes along with Karbonos, Einon Karevim Elbayim. They may only be offered during the day. Shemaratzah says, V'limiskeihem u'lishalmeichem. This is mamish at the end. I think it's the second to last pasuk of Parshas Pinchas. The Torah puts together the Shlamim, meaning Karbonos and the Nesachim. The Hekesh teaches Yas, Makish Nesachim l'Shlamim. Ma Shlamim Bayoim. We're speaking about the Dam of Nesachim only by Yoim. That come with the carbon. Here says that Rambam, they may be sanctified at night and they may be offered at night. And lefikach im nisdam loy nesachim aboy ma b'fnei atzman magdishan umakrivan balayla, but balayla means only during the night. And v'aloy sashachar peiselos behem ke'evari oila. In other words, you would think since they were only sanctified at night, so they should only be disqualified at the end of the next day. No, we don't say that. Always at the end of the night, by Alois HaShachar, everything will become invalid if it was not offered. Halacha Vav says that Rambam, Kol Hayoim Kosher L'Smicha, that we learned about at the end of Perek Gimel, O Velashchita, and Lemelika, which is what's done to a bird, and lehekter, to the burning on the altar, lagosha, to bringing it near the mizbeach, as we'll learn all these details when we get there soon, and for the throwing of the dam on the mizbeach, and from when you need to do the waving, and to make the kemitza, ula karban hamusafin, and v'chol halayla kosher lahakter emurim ve'ivarim. And zehaklal writes the Rambam in the middle of halacha 6, davar shemitzvasei bayoim kosher kol hayoim. Nevertheless, during the daytime of the day itself, when should you do it? Even though it's equal the whole day, that's as far as the carbon is concerned. But as far as the person is concerned, always the sooner the better. There's a rule, mitzvahs, people that are eager to perform the mitzvahs, do them sooner rather than later. Parenthetically, there are times, not when it comes to karbanes, but let's say when it comes to a bris milah, that you have another idea on the first. There's another idea of beroiv am hadras melech, do a mitzvah in the presence of greater multitudes of people, and sometimes you have to pick and choose, either to do it earlier, zrizin magdimin, like when it comes to a bris during that day that you have to do it, or during it late, do it later if you know that later more people will come. By a bris milah, the Rebbe opines that the beroiv am hadras melech will trump, but we don't always say that. Anyways, here we have, so we learned in this chapter 2 ideas. First of all, when it comes to the emurim, chaviva, mitzvah, b'shaita, to bring it during the daytime of the day. And during the daytime of the day proper, do it sooner rather than later, when you're able to, because of zriz and magdim and mitzvahs. Halacha 7. Kol azvachim ein shechten oisem lechatchila, that when you shecht any and all of karbanis, it should only be done with a knife that is a clay shades knife, that is a sacred utensil. Even if you slaughter the animal with an edge of a certain reed, which is the most simple, inexpensive knife for shchita, which may be used, the animal b'diavad will be kosher. Halacha 8. But if in the mizrak, if you receive not even enough, the minimum amount of blood that's needed to sprinkle it, to throw it on the altar, then the blood does not become consecrated. You say there is a minimum amount. But more than that, it's ideal to make an effort to receive all of the blood of the animal. And mind you, when it comes to the smaller animals, it's not such a big deal. But when it comes to the larger animals, to an ox, to a cow, that's a lot of blood. Kate said always, what could you do to make your effort to try to receive all of the blood? Prior to shchita, if you ever saw a shchita, the shoichet is going to grab from the outside of the neck both of the simanim. This is the esophagus and the trachea, and and he's also going to try to grab onto the main jugular veins that we're going to cut during the shchita, through which the blood will be leaving the animal, and you put it all inside this bowl. So in other words, the animal is positioned, the neck is positioned already almost inside the bowl prior to the cutting. And now, another detail, you lift the knife is above the neck of the animal, because if the knife will be under the animal, then the blood will go on the knife, and from the knife it's going to go into the bowl. We want for the blood to go directly from the neck of the animal inside the bowl. So the knife is above. Now there will be some blood on the knife. There, you will wipe it off on the upper edge of the bowl. Halacha 9. Right, the space of the basin, meaning if you were receiving the blood, and at some point, and the bottom part of the mizrak, now the mizrak, the bowls had pointed bottoms for you not to be able to put it down, because if you put down any utensil that has blood in it, the blood can congeal very quickly, which we don't want to happen. But nevertheless, it's called a bottom. In other words, anything that will go in there will be contained in it. Now, what happens if it broke? And now it's that bottom part is lacking, which means whatever will go in will go out. So if that was removed prior to the blood reaching to the ear space in the bowl, then it's not considered as if the dam was inside the bowl. Because any airspace which will not come to rest is not considered at all that you are inside the utensil. If blood went into the utensil, and prior to it reaching the bottom of the keli, that bottom part of the mizrach got broken, that blood is considered consecrated blood. And for example, we'll get into details later. What happens if after the blood was in the utensil, if it falls on the ground of the azara, the temple courtyard, it could be scooped up and thrown on the altar because it was already consecrated. If the chatchila never fell into the mizrach, if it fell straight to the ground, then that blood is not going to be consecrated, then it won't be effective even if you throw it on the altar. Halacha 10. Kol hazvachim. All of the sacrifices. Now here we go. This is the beginning of Masechta Menachos. The person performing the service. In other words, not the owner, but the kohen. His intent has to be for the sake of this sacrifice. So you can have so many people. This guy is bringing an oila, that person is bringing a shlamim. You have to know what is this sacrifice, who is its owner, and you have to have that in mind when you're shechting it, when you're receiving it, when you're walking the dam to the altar, and when you're throwing the blood on the mizbeach. These are called the 4 avodas of the dam: shchita, kabbalah, oilocha, and zrika. Shneimar, as it says, ubesar zevach toida shlama, which means shlamav shetia zevicha im sha'ar avodas u'arba l'shem shlamav v'chein sha'al hakorbanos. Now, when do you have to have the right intent if you're having intent? What happens if you have no intent? Meaning, the kohen did avodah. He didn't have in mind that this is a oila carbon. He didn't have in mind the wrong. He just had the stam. I'm shechting. Whether it's an oila, whether it's a shlamim, then the rule is it is kosher. And the owners fulfilled their obligation, even though the Rambam writes it b'oila u'b'shlamim, and therefore some people might erroneously be medayik only by the oil and the shlamim. That's not the case. The Rambam means to say even by the oil and the shlamim, which is the source. The din of l'shem zebach was written by oil and shlamim. One might have thought that there you have to have the kavanah l'shem, the right carbon. Even by the oil and the shlamim, if you had a kavanah stam, you're good. And that's machlal, a rule in life, that many times stam is a lot better than the wrong intent. Now, if you're having a kavana for whom, so really the Rambam writes in the final halacha 11 that v'tzarech shetia machshavtoi b'shah shchita so'oila l'shem shisha devarim. When you're bringing an oila, if you're not doing it stam, you know it's an oila, and you want to have a specific intent what this is for whom it's for, why are you bringing it? Then there are 6 kavanas that you have to have. Number 1, l'shem hazevach. If it's an oila, you have to have in mind this is an oila and not any other intent. Not a shlamim, not a chatas, not an asham. U'l'shem hazoideach. And you have to know who the owner is, and you have to have the claim is having in mind for whom is he bringing the carbon. Number 3, that this carbon is being brought la Hashem, to God, blessed be He. Number 4, she'yaktiroi le'ishim. Yet your kavana is that this should be and will be consumed by fire. Another 5th kavana, shehaktorosei le'reach bilvad, that its consumption by the fire is why? Is to create a pleasant fragrance. And that this, the final kavana of Shariach Zem, should be nachas ruach lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All right. Are we having a problem here with the Zoom? Okay. Now, the im shachat stam. So again, the Rambam, even though we wrote that before, he wants to point out that now that we said there are 6 kavanas, if you had not a single of these kavanas, then kosher, as we learned before, and va'alul ba'alim. Now, another detail, if the carbon is a chatas or an asham, so it's not enough only for the kohen to have in mind for whom, but here, tzarech shetiya machshavtei l'shem oisa achet shema olav. You also have to have the kavanah for what sin is this being brought for. Wow. Okay. And guys, just to remember, that's the first opening in Shas, right, of Kachim, Shachta Zvachim, where the Mishnah writes that Kol HaZvachim shenisbachu shaloi l'shman kshedim elo shaloi olu l'ba'alim l'shem chayva. But amazing. And Chutz, we learned min ha-Pesach v'ha-Chatos that not only will the owner not fulfill his or her obligation, but you cannot even bring it. Once you realize you have the wrong kavanah, you got to stop right away. And that's the kavanah. The specifics about the kavanah are right over here. But we are starting now. Hilchos Ma'aseh Korbanos. Is your problem with the Zoom?
Yeah. So